6. "So, then what happened?" Archer asked, as he leaned across the table, hanging on Mabel's every word despite the clamor of the middle school lunchroom around them. "That was it," Mabel answered. She unlocked her tiffin and inhaled the aroma of curry with chickpeas, Sivan's specialty. "We ate cookies and watched some cartoons, and then I walked down to a coffee shop where I waited for Sivan to pick me up." Mabel stirred the curry, half wondering what she was going to do when he eventually moved out and went to college. Maybe he could teach her how to cook. "You're not going back, are you?" Archer asked. "Of course I am," Mabel said, rolling her eyes and taking a bite of her food. Suki gasped. "Don't do it. I asked the cards last night about your babysitting job, and I pulled the Knight of Swords." "I don't know what that means," Mabel said, around cheeks stuffed full of rice and curry. "It means you're in danger, obviously," Suki whined, as though Mabel was being dense on purpose. "You're playing with fire, girl. Tisk, tisk, tisk." The bangles around Suki's wrists clinked as she waved her finger back and forth. "I agree with Suki," Archer said. "You don't need tarot to tell you the obvious. Something bad is going on in that house." He tugged on his starched purple shirt sleeves with an air of authority. Archer liked to dress up like a fashionable morning show host, and Mabel agreed that he would be famous someday. "It's not like anything weird happened," Mabel argued. "I went upstairs, and it was just a regular upstairs. No dead bodies anywhere. I don't even know what Christy," that's what she said I should call her, "was so worried about." Mabel left out the part about the strange wallpaper border. That, she figured, was just a weird, decorative choice. "Did you look in every room upstairs?" Archer countered. "No, but that's not the point. I mean, if she doesn't want us to hang out up there, that's fine, we won't." Mabel put down her spoon and reached into her backpack. "Besides, check this out." She pulled out a wad of 20s. $60. Without hesitation, Fernanda plucked the cash from Mabel's fist. "You still owe me $82.60. "Fernanda, are you effing kidding me right now?" Fernanda didn't usually make jokes. She deadpanned. "No," and put the money in her own backpack. Mabel sighed. "Fine. I'll be earning way more than that anyway. And Torture Town is gonna be so worth it. But you better have exact change for me in a couple days." Fernanda chomped a bite out of her jelly sandwich and shrugged in agreement. The next 2 babysitting visits on Thursday and Friday went without a hitch. Sivan dropped Mabel off at the entrance to Spite Lane. Mabel waited for Twyla's bus to show up. She walked Twyla home, and she made snacks for them to eat while they watched TV. Since the first day Mabel had babysat, Twyla had not gone upstairs. Mabel thought it was turning out to be the easiest money-making venture in the world. As they watched cartoons, Twyla kept her toy train, Bones, on the coffee table in front of the couch, where he stared ominously at Mabel. Mabel tried not to think too much of it. Kids had toys, and this one was just like all the others. But Bones clearly needed a battery change. Every once in a while, he would murmur one of his catchphrases unprompted. It would whisper out of the speaker under his boiler. "Up for adventure." And without moving, his bug eyes would begin to swirl in their sockets. Mabel didn't love this part of their time together, but she was mostly able to ignore it. Monday afternoon, however, after Mabel returned from their weekend break, Bones was in markedly worse shape. His arms wouldn't pop out, His lips gaped open, and his eyes had rolled all the way up and gotten stuck in that position. He looked positively ill.
"Let's play a game,"
Bones spontaneously rumbled. Mabel couldn't take it anymore. While Twyla sat on the couch eating a plate of brownies covered in rainbow sprinkles, Mabel retreated to the kitchen to find a screwdriver and some batteries. "Twy, do you know where y'all keep the tool chest?" Mabel called out to the little girl. "No," Twyla said distractedly in return. Her favorite show was on, and she was difficult to interrupt. So Mabel went back to looking in every cabinet high and low before finding it. Mabel returned to the couch and grabbed Bones, turning him upside down, looking for the battery compartment. "Hey!" Twyla cried. "What are you doing?" She jumped up and viciously grabbed Bones out of Mabel's hands. "Chill out," Mabel said. "I was just going to give him new batteries so he'll talk like a normal toy again." "He is normal," Twyla argued. "There's nothing wrong with him." She hugged the hard plastic toy to her chest as though he were a security blanket. "Totally cool, totally cool." Mabel put her hands as though she'd been caught mid-crime. "We don't have to fix him if you don't want to." She set the screwdriver down on the table and took her seat on the couch. Next to her, Twyla clutched at the toy so that it faced Mabel. She could feel its unnaturally round eyes staring her down. She wondered if she could find a way to sneak some new batteries into him when Twyla wasn't looking. Better yet, maybe she could hide him, and Twyla would forget about him so they could watch cartoons in peace. But Twyla and Bones never left the edge of Mabel's peripheral vision. It was as though they were silently awaiting her next move. Bones was nowhere in sight when Mabel and Twyla entered the house on Tuesday. She was eager to get a break from the broken toy, but she was equally bored of cartoons. "Hey, Twyla," Mabel called, as the girl went straight for the remote. "I couldn't help but notice that no one in your neighborhood seems to decorate for Halloween." Twyla paused with her finger on the on button. She watched Mabel without turning on the television set. "We should do something to decorate, don't you think? We could draw pumpkins and put them in the window, or make a construction paper garland." Mabel said this as she crossed to the kitchen, hoping the little girl would follow. In the cabinet, Mabel found the supplies and set them out on the table. A moment later, the girl stood, watching her from the door. "Come on," Mabel coaxed. She took a seat in one of the kitchen chairs. She'd found a bucket with old broken crayons, glue sticks, and safety scissors. "What do you want to make?" Twyla didn't answer, but she did cross to the table and sit down. Certainly she's made arts and crafts at school, right? Mabel thought. Poor kid looks like she's never seen a crayon before. Mabel folded a piece of orange construction paper in half, opened it up, and laid it flat on the table, and, using the crease as the center line, began to draw a jack-o'-lantern on one side. Then, using the scissors, she folded it up again and began to cut out the pumpkin along the lines through both sides of the paper so it would make a symmetrical design. When she finished cutting, she opened it up and showed Twyla the face by sticking her tongue through the jagged mouth. Twyla laughed. It was the first time Mabel had seen her show joy. "I like you," Twyla said. Mabel blushed. "Thanks. I like you too." "You're nicer than Christy," Twyla said, licking her lips. "I wish you lived here." Mabel wasn't sure what to say. "You do?" Twyla nodded. "I wish you didn't go home, and you stayed here all the time." Mabel put down the drawing and started working on another pumpkin. That's sweet. Want to make one all by yourself? She held out the folded paper to Twyla, but the little girl didn't drop her gaze. She stared at Mabel directly in the eye. You should stay. Mabel cleared her throat. Thanks. But I think my brother would miss me. And your mom probably wouldn't like it much if I never left either. I told you she's not my mom. Mabel frowned. She had forgotten, but yeah, Twyla had mentioned that. Well, then your sister wouldn't. Christy's not my sister. She's my dad's. Twyla cut herself off. At this point, Mabel thought she understood. Your dad's girlfriend, she suggested. Twyla didn't respond. Maybe Christy was his wife? Twyla's stepmom? Either way, Mabel could understand why Twyla might treat her badly. Maybe her parents had divorced, or worse yet, her mother had died, and she blamed Christy. That could also explain why Christy did so much bending over backwards to please the little kid. It didn't, however, explain where Twyla's father was. Mabel hadn't met him, and Christy had never even mentioned him. Your dad must work a lot, Mabel said, fishing. I never see him around. Does he come home late? Twyla's lips stiffened into a tight line. Careful, Mabel, Mabel thought to herself. Tread lightly. You know, I haven't seen my dad in a long time, Mabel offered. And my mom isn't around much either. It can be pretty lonely, not getting to see your parents very often. Do you ever feel lonely? Twyla's face grew beet red. Mabel knew she was on thin ice, but her curiosity was piqued. Hey, she said quietly, reaching a hand out across the table. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, okay? But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. She was about to give Twyla's hand a squeeze when the little girl balled her hand into a fist and pulled it away. You pushed it too far, Mabel thought. Give her a minute to cool off. Gathering the crayons and scissors, Mabel slid them across the table towards the girl. Then she stood up. I have to go to the bathroom, she said. She figured a few minutes alone with the crafting supplies might be good for Twyla. As she walked away, she internally congratulated herself for how she'd handled things, and even thought maybe she should be a child psychologist one day. Then, Twyla spoke. I get to see my dad all the time, the girl said. I can see him whenever I want. Mabel looked back at her, more confused than ever. Oh, well, that's great, she said. I'll be right back. Mabel went to the bathroom. It only took a couple of minutes, but when she returned, Twyla was gone.